you have to work towards it. That's what he does. From there on, he goes to hyenas. So why he mentions hyenas, and then it goes to another essay. It has a link to an essay which we're gonna talk about. Is hyenas are the most lowest forms of predators in the fighting in the jungle, let's say, right? Whenever you have a jungle and like hyenas are there, they're just feeding on carcasses, and they're really low.
They're just wild.
Yeah, and then if you've seen the Lion King, the animated movie, you know how hyenas are. Let's just put it that way. And versus a lion, which goes out and hunts. Well, the lionesses hunt, but the image of a lion, contextually or conceptually, is of a predator, like the apex predator. And there's the difference. He talks about how he was scared of jumping into e-commerce because he was scared of people getting $20-30 million on his competitors started getting 20-30 millions from VCs, and he was really scared of people of companies that were backed up by VCs, right?
Starting something on his own, and someone with the competitor who has $1 million of backup, millions of dollars of backup. So it is pretty scary.
Yeah, it is pretty scary, but then it doesn't seem scary after it didn't seem scary to him after he actually jumped in and then started working really hard towards it. And then it also puts a link to another essay which is called the Unified Theory of VC Suckage. This Unified Theory of VC Suckage was really illuminating for me, because this is where he points out why so many VCs are jerks. Okay, so now this is a lesson for our VCs too. Most of the VCs in the Western countries, they have like 100 million or a high amount of money in their funds, because they only get up to maximum 2% from their earnings or revenue of investments. So if you're getting 2% of $100,000, how much is that? $2,000?
$2,000.
If you're getting 2% of $100 million, how much is that?
It's $2 million.
Right? So you gotta invest a lot. So you gotta be paranoid. You gotta be worried it's not your money, it's somebody else's money. You don't want a negative portfolio. You only want a positive portfolio. That's when like these VCs seem so bad or so worse, and they
seem like sucking something.
The energy out of it. And he wrote this a month before he wrote like the earlier essay, and it kind of seems why he did that, because in the start of his essay he mentions why he doesn't want he was offered a job as a VC like head or technical some person with the prowess, but then he didn't want to participate in that because he was opposed to it. But then he talks about there are some good VCs too, but those best ones, the ones with the no negative portfolios or less amount of negative portfolios, have this one thing, is that they only care about the product and they only want to make the business bigger and better.
He mentions even VCs hate VCs and they call themselves assholes
or something like that. And he also talks about how, going back to the hyenas thing, he also talks about figuring out if you have a service or a product. So if you have a product, when you have an IPO, products are something tangible. You buy a product, it's with you, the money you get back from it is yours. But then if you have a service, people might choose to opt out of that service. So during the internet bubble of 2000, 2001, that's right after when he wrote this essay, right before he wrote this essay, that's when people started showing that their services were in terms like a product. I can't really recall what company he was talking about, but then he also said it was a bad decision not to go against a company or companies that were backed by VCs just because he was scared. So basically, if you're out there, just don't become scared if some VCs are doing.
Yeah, he mentions Arctics was like hyenas and others were like lions, and the lions turned out to not have teeth
at all. And he also mentioned this one more thing. I don't know, it might be true or not in today's day and age, but 14 years ago, as much as he had noticed, this is one person's perspective, by the way, these VCs were mostly spending a lot of money to write code or get an app made or something like that at that time. That was a issue back then. I don't know if that's an issue now, because most of the VCs have learned a lot from like other people's mistakes. Even VCs in Nepal know a lot about giving creative control to people. But then if you're going against a VC in Nepal, I really think you should do a lot of research when it comes to doing your startup. And then he moves on to a part called a familiar problem. I mean, this is also my favorite part. He says why his first company was a bad idea, because it was some of all his error. They were being very, very uncareful about what kind of business they wanted to do. They did the first thing that came into their mind, and they chose a really small niche market that they couldn't make money on just because they were scared. So the three things you don't need to have, according to him, if you're a really smart person, and these are the things a smart person does knowingly. First, you're scared of competition. Second, you choose to go with the first idea. And third, you do not understand the idea of making money, how to make money and when to make money.
Three mistakes.
The thing that